Hey, yo, Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners, help us out and click subscribe to show your support. And while you're at it, if you're in YouTube, please enable notifications so you get notified every time a new episode goes up of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. And while you're at it, if you are sick and tired of dropping $60 to $100 every time the latest, greatest wrestling video game comes out, stop immediately. Go to Wrestler Unstoppable, available exclusively through Facebook. Create your wrestler, sign contracts, get involved in storylines, headline pay-per-views, even build your own corporation, all included in Wrestler Unstoppable, available now to all Facebook users completely free. If you want to become a member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family and you want your name in the shoutouts like our buddy Harold in St. Louis, who gave me great information for this week, we're going to be doing a segment tonight purely based on a suggestion of Harold, then stop right now, shoot over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Pro Wrestling Podcast and sign up today. And I know December is wrapping up. This is our last episode of 2017, but anybody who gets in before the end of the month and becomes a $25 Patreon contributor, you will co-host an episode of Going Live with me in January. And for our 10-month contributors, you got a week left. You'll be entered into a drawing for one winner to co-host an episode of Going Live with me in January as well. So, hello everybody. Welcome to this live episode of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. Normally in the fourth week of the month, I would be at the Worldwide Wrestling Alliance show in Quakertown, Pennsylvania. Did not happen tonight. Various items came up that were a little more important, but I was notified by my good friends out at the show, crowning a new world champion tonight. Congratulations to Jack Molson defeating Ken Andrews. Great rivalry that's been going on since around May of last year. So really cool to see him get a championship opportunity. So congrats to my buddy Molson. And for the rest of this episode, first off, live right now, if you go to ProWrestling.com, the homepage of the Pro Wrestling Podcast, you could start casting your votes. We are into our final round of the greatest female wrestler of all time tournament. We started out with 256 women. We are down to the finals, the last two. And I know in the semifinals, a lot of comments that I got in the feedback section were that the top match in the bracket was the match of the tournament. It was the number one sought after match. And I didn't have the foresight to make sure that these two ended up in the final together. I apologize. Charlotte versus Alundra Blaze, also known as Medusa Maselli, was probably everybody's absolute championship match. Unfortunately, that happened in the semifinals, and Alundra Blaze came out on top. She takes the top half of the bracket. In the bottom half, Sasha Banks comes out of the bottom half. So the championship final of our tournament will be Alundra Blaze versus Sasha Banks. Go to ProWrestling.com right now and cast your vote for those two ladies. And while you're at it, the other big thing of the day is that, courtesy of my buddy, out in St. Louis, we're going to do something new tonight. It's the last episode of the year, and I really wanted to do something special, and he gave me the perfect idea. I don't know why I didn't think of it, sooner. So he gave me the idea, why don't we do our own year-end awards? So I spent the better part of today trying to think of what we could add and what we could do. And so if you go to ProWrestling.com right now, we have just launched live as we speak the Pro Wrestling End of Year Awards. They are in there. Click on the link. You can fill out the questionnaire and answer Match of the Year, Wrestler of the Year, Female Talent of the Year, Tag Team of the Year, Company of the Year, Show of the Year. All those items are in there for you to vote on. We will cast your votes. Voting will close on December 31st at midnight. The ball drops, the voting closes. That simple. So make sure you get in early and get your votes. While we are live, you have two ways you could communicate with us. One, if you go to ProWrestling.com and go to our Spreaker app, the app that is on the webpage, or if you just go to Spreaker.com and look up the Pro Wrestling Podcast, there is a chat feature. I see my buddy John, the sports guy, John in Hatfield, is live with us right now. Hey, John, how are you? And anybody else who wants to shoot us comments, immediately it'll pop right up on the screen here through the Spreaker app. Go for it. Give me questions, comments, concerns, anything you want to talk about. I'll see it here, and I'll try to get you included in the show. And for those people who want to shoot a message through the Pro Wrestling Sound Off line, 267-642-1160. You can put your information in there. That is a talk-to-text service. You speak, it records your conversation. It tries to give me the closest text message to what you said, and I say that for a reason because I get some interesting things that pop in there that I know you guys aren't really asking, but it thinks you're asking. But you can go to the Pro Wrestling Sound Off line and leave your message there, and I will try to get to that during the show as well. If you are a new listener to the Pro Wrestling Podcast, by all means, go to thefrowrestling.com, check out all the information about upcoming topics that are going to be discussed on the podcast are listed there, so you could come up with your questions, all those kinds of things, and that way you know exactly what you want to talk about when you call into the hotline or go to the chat feature. Tonight, I'm going to start, I understand I had some people, dude, where were you all week? We didn't get an episode on Wednesday, Thursday like normal. I get it, dude. It's the last week. Those who know me know I'm a teacher. It's the last week before the winter break. All kinds of craziness goes on that week. I had those things going on, as well as just normal riffraff in that Christmas season. I got 3 kids, man. You got to buy for everybody. Got to take care of my lovely wife. So, a little crazy this week, but I'm going to get to this episode. I loaded this episode for the end of the year. First off, my reaction. People have been asking all week, what is my reaction to WWE Clash of Champions? I have 2 reactions, one positive, one negative. Here's my negative. I'll start with the bad first. I thought every match on the card was god-awful terrible, except for one. I thought that everything was predictable booking, and in this generation of smart marks and internet fans and people like you and I who talk about the news all the time, at what point is WWE going to get intelligent enough to start giving us storylines, plots, or signing their booking talent to contracts that preclude them from sharing any information under the possibility of being terminated and sued for divulging company information? And the reason I say that is this. Everybody knew pretty much all the winners ahead of the pay-per-view. That makes watching the matches really laborious because you already know what's going to happen. Not to mention that half of the matches on the show we've already seen repeatedly. So it kind of kills off the pay-per-view buzz when you already know what's going to happen. Now, the flip side, the good thing of the show, the big highlight of the show for me, watching Dolph Ziggler walk out United States champion, the big-time underdog, the guy who was put in the match to lose, comes out on top, wins the United States Championship. For those who have been checking out the new section of FroWrestling.com, if you go to the top of the page, you'll see In Fro's Corner. That is my blog site where I put up articles that started earlier this week. I put one up about Dolph Ziggler. I was thrilled to see him win the United States Championship. Now, the flip side of that is I'm thoroughly confused and frustrated with the way they're handling him after that win, having him relinquish the title, or at least perceived to have relinquished the title on SmackDown Live, leaving it lay in the middle of the ring and walking away. I'm not a big fan of that way of booking it. However, if they're trying to build intrigue, I think they're doing that well. I think they may want to have some kind of tournament to fill a new champion so that he walks out having never been beaten, and it creates a storyline for a potential match. Think of this a lot like Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon from back at WrestleMania 10. You have the champion who walks away, but he never actually said he was relinquishing the title. You have WWE who they could go out, they could start a tournament, crown a new champion, or do a battle royal like they did back then and crown a new champion, and never acknowledge that Ziggler relinquished the title, leading to maybe a ladder match at WrestleMania for the United States Championship. I would not be opposed to seeing that. He is under contract till 2019, but a lot of people have been discussing whether or not he's sticking around and if he's going to transition either into something else in WWE, or is he going to leave the company and go on to greener pastures, perhaps in New Japan Pro Wrestling, Ring of Honor, something of that nature. It's very curious to watch and see what happens with Dolph Ziggler in the next couple months. The other thing I want to get to first, I shouldn't say first, we just did Clash of Champions, but is WrestleKingdom. WrestleKingdom 12, January 4th, coming up in just over a week. I want to throw out there just a couple things. One, run down the match card, give you a few of my predictions for who's going to win what, and we'll go from there. First off, they announced that they're going to add a New Japan Rumble to the show. If you don't know what that is, a lot like a Royal Rumble, but it's like everybody who matters who didn't get into a match somewhere else on the card. And I love these. Last year, won by Michael Elgin. He will probably be in the match again this year, I would imagine. Actually, he's in a different match. I shouldn't say that. He's in a gauntlet match for the never open weight 6-man tag team championship. That match was just added. I almost forgot that. But the New Japan Rumble is great because they get to bring all their young lions. And for those who are not aware, the young lions are the younger wrestlers who are training at the New Japan dojo who are not the big stars yet. They need some exposure. Well, there is no bigger exposure in New Japan than WrestleKingdom. So they'll bring a conglomerate of wrestlers out and they'll have kind of like a Royal Rumble that takes place. So check that out if you can. Match 2 on the list, Roppongi 3K Sho and Yo. They are the tag team champions of the junior heavyweight division. They'll be facing the Young Bucks, Nick and Matt Jackson. I actually expect Roppongi 3K to retain the titles. I think they, having been that they just won the championship in November, I think that they will keep them for it would be too soon to take the titles off of them. Match 3, the Bullet Club, Bad Luck Fale, Tama Tonga, and Tangaloa. They are the 6-man never openweight tag team champions. They'll be facing Chaos, which is Beretta, Tomohiro Ishii, and Toru Yano. They'll be taking on Michael Elgin and War Machine, and taking on Suzuki Gun, Tai Chi, Takahashi Iizuka, and Zack Sabre Jr., and Taiguchi Japan, Juice Robinson, Raizuki Taiguchi, and Toji Makabe. I know it's like a whole lot of words to throw out there if you're not a common New Japan Pro Wrestling fan. You probably have no idea who half of those people are. Know that the Bullet Club are in the match, as well as Michael Elgin and War Machine. Those two teams alone make for great action. Juice Robinson, another great one to keep an eye on, and a whole lot of other talent thrown in there. Check that out. Former Ring of Honor World Champion Cody Rhodes is going to take on Kota Ibushi. I expect Cody to come out with the win here. I think they would like to build Cody in a way that he can challenge Kenny Omega for the United States Championship later in the year, especially now that he's not the Ring of Honor World Champion. That has now gone to Dalton Castle for those who missed the last episode. But you got to do something to keep Cody booked strong. And I think he really enjoys the reaction from the New Japan crowd. It's something beautiful to see. So we'll I definitely feel strongly that he's going to walk out as the winner in that match. Killer Elite Squad, Davey Boy Smith Jr. and Lance Archer, the tag team champions of IWGP, take on Los Ignorables de Japón. That's going to be Evil and Sonata. I actually think Evil and Sonata take the championship at WrestleKingdom. They've been built all year to be strong. So I see them walking out as the new tag team champions. In a championship match with another stipulation, Minoru Suzuki, the never openweight champion, takes on Hiroki Goto, the former champion, but this time the loser not only if it's the champion loses their title, but whoever loses their hair. It'll be interesting. Minoru Suzuki with that bizarre cut and do as it is. I think Goto will end up losing the match, just so we don't have to see Suzuki lose that trademark haircut. I could be wrong, but again, if you are not a huge fan of New Japan Pro Wrestling, check out WrestleKingdom on January 4th or on the 6th through the 10th when they show them on Access Television. Great shows. Next matchup, 4-way match for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. Marty Scurll is the champion, defending against Hiromu Takahashi, Kushida, and Will Ospreay. I expect Kushida to pick up the win here and regain a championship that was taken from him earlier in the year that he never really got a shot to get back. I'd like to see Kushida get that title back. For the IWGP Intercontinental Championship, Hiroshi Tanahashi, the champion, defending against Jay White. Tanahashi is slightly injured, but I do expect him to walk out retaining the Intercontinental Championship. There is, in my opinion, a co-main event. So the first one, which one am I going to talk about first? The one that I think means a hair more, but it should come, second to last. The big matchup. No disqualification. IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship. The champion Kenny Omega defending against Chris Jericho. Alpha versus Omega. First time ever in the world. New Japan presenting WrestleKingdom 12 with this absolutely monumental match. For anybody who knows me as a wrestling fan, they know that I'm dying to see this. And I'll be very much tuned in to watching that match. I will not see it until January 6th. On my television. I guarantee you I'll be pulling it up on YouTube the day after the event, because that match, I am absolutely dying to see. It has been built up perfectly, and I completely predict Kenny Omega will still be the champion walking out of WrestleKingdom, but Chris Jericho, in some way, shape, or form, is going to remain strong in this match, because I think this is not going to be a one-off like they thought it was going to be originally. That's the vibe I get, especially with Jericho announcing tour dates for his band Fozzy and not going to be able to appear at either the Royal Rumble or WrestleMania. It only makes sense for him to do another match with Kenny Omega a little later in the year. And the actual build main event for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, Kazuchika Okada versus Tetsuya Naito. This match is money. These are two of the best talents in the world, and if I'm really being honest, Kazuchika Okada is probably the best wrestler of the generation, but he's held the title for an extraordinarily long time. It is time to pass that title on, and that's why I say Tetsuya Naito walks out as the new IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. That's my prediction. Moving on to the news of the week, the things that some people have covered, some people have questions about. Let's get into it right away. First day off, an update on the Rich Swann situation. We talked last episode. Rich Swann arrested on domestic battery, all kinds of charges, went to jail, got out, released, this and that. Well, apparently he and his wife have patched things up. She was posting on Twitter how thankful she was to have everything back together. Congratulations to the couple if they've worked things out. I hope everything works out well. I actually, if it's less serious than some of us think it is, then I hope it goes away and he can continue his career. If it is more serious, I don't want to see one of these things where like the wife just swipes it under the rug because she loves her man. If he did something wrong, he deserves to pay the piper. So hopefully we'll get some clarification on what's going on with that in the near future. In the meantime, Rich Swann still suspended from World Wrestling Entertainment. WWE is now going to air in Mongolia. I know that sounds like a bizarre thing to announce on my podcast. However, I felt the need because it just shows the global footprint that WWE has. All these other companies who always joke about being a threat to World Wrestling Entertainment. How can you be a threat to a company that airs in Mongolia? I want you to think about that for a moment. They air everywhere. Ring of Honor, I could barely find on Access Television until about a year and a half ago. Come on, people. Early betting odds for the Royal Rumble are out right now. What may be a surprise is that, first off, the odds makers have deemed that Shinsuke Nakamura is the favorite to win, that Ronda Rousey is the favorite to win the Women's Rumble, and that there are other people who you probably wouldn't expect. Like, for example, Braun Strowman, of course, is in there, even though he's already in the World Championship match. I could see if he didn't win the championship, him showing up and say number 27, 28, 30, somewhere in there, and tearing people apart and getting the win. Roman Reigns, also a heavy favorite to win the Rumble. John Cena is a favorite to win the Rumble, as is AJ Styles, which is confusing unless AJ loses the title earlier in the night, much in the same way that Brock Lesnar is in the favorites list to win the Rumble. So it'll be very curious to see other people who clearly are not at the top of the list. Baron Corbin, significantly down the list. The Miz, further down the list. People like that. Kevin Owens, very far down the list. Randy Orton. So it'll be curious to see who wins the Rumble. I know everybody's been saying Roman Reigns all along, but they don't have to have him win the Rumble. He could walk into the Rumble, get eliminated, and still earn the World Championship shot if a SmackDown superstar wins the Rumble. That's where I think Nakamura comes in. I'm just confused when you look at the odds makers and they're putting the world champions into the Rumble. And I love seeing Ronda Rousey be listed as the favorite to win the Women's Rumble when she hasn't even signed a contract with WWE yet. Very interesting. Ring of Honor announces the Women of Honor Championship. There will be a tournament, 16 women. It'll start in January and air through February. Congratulations to whoever becomes the first Women of Honor champion. Long overdue. It's like Ring of Honor's trying to play catch up with WWE with this Women's Revolution. It's about time Women of Honor and women in all wrestling phases around the business all start getting a much more firm grasp on the main stage that is the squared circle. WWE has done a very nice job of that. Adding the Women's Royal Rumble was monstrous news this week. I'm very proud of WWE for doing the right thing there, putting that match out there. We all have been speculating since like July that was going to happen. Now it's official. So Ring of Honor trying to keep pace, but WWE just keeps outdoing them. I'm sure we're going to have a women's elimination chamber. I would not be surprised. Earlier this week, I have to pass along condolences to the family of Tom Zink. For those who don't know Tom Zink, he was primarily a tag team specialist, teamed with Rick Martel for a short period of time in WWE. He went on to have a career in the AWA. He also had a career in WCW where he was a very successful tag team with Brian Pillman. They were the United States Tag Team Champions. Never really, he had a great feud with Arn Anderson over the World Television Championship. But at the age of 59, sadly, Tom Zink passed away earlier this week. I believe on December 9th, if memory serves, and I'm just getting the news out to you. It tells you how horrible I am. But condolences to the family of Tom Zink. There is huge rumors floating around the internet about WWE signing some major new talents from Ring of Honor. One of those, the biggest names would be Hanson and Rowe, the War Machine tag team, apparently already taking their physicals and doing their medical testing for WWE. Expect them to debut shortly after, probably the Monday after the Royal Rumble. That's what I would suspect, unless they send them to NXT. And then in addition, it sounds like Ricochet will debut, they're saying somewhere in the neighborhood of January 18th. I would love to see him debut at the Royal Rumble. I think it would be a surprise to Vince McMahon the kind of reaction he would get, because he is a world traveler. He's been everywhere important. Yeah, subtract Impact Wrestling, because they're really not important yet. So it'll be great to see these new signings come to WWE, and they're talking even more. There was an interview this week with James Storm talking about potentially making a return to NXT and how much he would love to do that. So I expect he may be coming in. Ethan Carter III is trademarking his name, so he could bring that with him if he leaves Impact Wrestling, which looks like that's a foregone conclusion. And Bobby Lashley potentially coming in. We've hypothesized about that for a couple weeks now. Looks like all of them could be coming to WWE very, very soon. Interesting conversation this week with Cody Rhodes talking about whether or not WWE should do another Starrcade. You would think with the, I don't want to say bad blood, but the stress that's there between Cody and WWE, that he may not be as supportive of his dad's idea being brought back again, but quite the opposite. Cody Rhodes thinks that WWE not only should do another Starrcade, but they should absolutely be available on the network. They were a great event. At this one, they actually did record some of the content, so they could put it on the network, but it doesn't sound like they're going to. He would really like for them to do that next time and really give it the main stage it deserves. Becky Lynch, set to return to SmackDown Live early 2018. She needs to get back there so she could be in that Women's Royal Rumble, and I would not be surprised if she does very well, takes it all the way to the end of the Rumble before she's eliminated, probably by Ronda Rousey. But it does sound like, on the topic of the Rumble and Becky Lynch and people like Charlotte and Rousey and all that, that 2 of the 4 horsewomen in the mixed martial arts world have stopped training at the Performance Center, potentially indicating that the WWE has soured on the 4 horsewoman versus 4 horsewoman match at WrestleMania. In addition, Shayna Baszler, the other member of the 4 horsewomen, along with Rousey, is now a premium debut on NXT, so bringing her to the main roster to face the 4 horsewomen of WWE would be a little bit rushed, I think. She doesn't have enough time in NXT to really get a seasoned character down and all that. Now, maybe down the road, after Rousey comes in, she makes a few appearances, she gets very popular, maybe wins the Women's Championship, maybe next year she could bring her people in. However, the conversation now is that Ronda Rousey being the favorite to win would be for her to challenge Asuka at WrestleMania, not Charlotte, but to challenge Asuka, because Asuka uses the armbar. She's got this undefeated streak. Who better to end that undefeated streak than a legitimate tough girl, Ronda Rousey, who also uses the armbar in mixed martial arts? So that is the conversation now, that it may not be Charlotte and Rousey, which, for those who've been listening to the podcast, you know what I've said. Ronda Rousey, Charlotte could main event this year's WrestleMania, because people are so sour on the Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns thing. This would be the perfect year for the women to be the main event. If you really want a women's revolution, that's what you should be doing. This Asuka thing is not going to get over the way Ronda Rousey and Charlotte would, but hopefully down the line we get that opportunity. Daniel Bryan and Shinsuke Nakamura trading jabs on Twitter. Nakamura was talking about how he can't remember how many years it's been, but he did indeed stand in the ring with Daniel Bryan at Clash of Champions. And Daniel Bryan said he wishes it was under different circumstances and he had his gear, implying that he would love to be having a match with Nakamura, something we are all dying to hear. However, WWE still has not cleared him to compete. It is absolutely ridiculous. At this point, he should be either cleared or just release him from his contract. He had an interview this week where he stated that the part of his job he has now as an on-screen personality who doesn't get to wrestle is the part of the job that he hates. He hates all the travel and being away from home and standing in the ring and talking and not being able to actually wrestle. The wrestling is what he loves, and that is not what he's able to do. And he was very clear. If at the end of this year he is not cleared to return to the ring, he will return to the ring for somebody else. At that point in time, he thinks it would be time to step away and do something else, which would be wrestle for somebody else. And that Brie is completely behind him in his wishes to do that. Found it interesting this week that Conor McGregor was talking some trash about WWE. People were asking him if, there was any negotiations for him to make an appearance for WWE, and he totally blew off WWE in such a disrespectful manner. Thoroughly surprising. Conor McGregor, I think he thinks he's better than the world. Look, dude, you got beat. You got beat bad by Floyd Mayweather. Now they're talking about a Conor McGregor fight against Manny Pacquiao. Pacquiao would chew you up and spit you out too. You're a mixed martial artist. Now I did see this week that somebody was, I believe it was Dana White, was theorizing that they could negotiate with Floyd Mayweather to do an MMA appearance. I don't see that happening. He is not stupid. You know, I understand that he's 50-0 now. If he comes to mixed martial arts, it's not going to tarnish his 50-0 record because it's a different sport technically, but that would tarnish his legacy in the eyes of the spectator. He's a boxer. He doesn't know how to grapple with people. If anything proved that, when he went against the Big Show at WrestleMania, we could see how much he doesn't have a wrestling background. So that's a horrible idea. But on the topic of WWE, Conor McGregor sounds like he is not interested. Austin Aries has now compiled, he's getting quite a resume since leaving WWE. This past week, winning the Defiant Championship, defeating Marty Scurll. Awesome situation watching Austin Aries walk away with some gold. He's so underappreciated in the world of wrestling. Whether it was Impact Wrestling, WWE, he just wasn't given the opportunity to shine the way he could. Places like Defiant Wrestling, Progress Wrestling, ICW, AAW, those places, those people allow their talents to go out and really showcase what they can do. And that's what Austin Aries needs. He needs, you know, they used to talk about Shawn Michaels using the canvas to paint like Rembrandt. That's Austin Aries. You got to let him go out there and show it. Show it all. You know, this whole like pulled back, laid back WWE, PG, it sucks. I'm sorry, but it does. I get it. We got children watching. You don't have to have all the raunchy nastiness that they had during the Attitude Era, but you could have some attitude. And you shouldn't have to tone all that down all the time. Let some of these guys go out there and really tear it up. We have the first entrant in the Women's Royal Rumble was announced. Naomi will be in the Rumble. I'm sure it's pretty much going to be a who's who of both brands. But she is the first official entrant to the Royal Rumble. Had to throw that in there because somebody sent me a question if who did I think was going to be the first, and then they announced the first. Also, Dean Ambrose in the news. Everybody who watched Monday Night Raw, you saw when he went out to that ringside at one point, he hit his elbow awkwardly, started smacking the ground. The word is that he actually hurt his elbow at a house show and was working through injury at Raw so they could set up the injury angle. He was written off TV on the day of Raw, so it wasn't some long-term plan thing, and now he may be out 4 to 6 months. He had successful surgery this week. He's already starting to rehab his injury. Well wishes to Dean Ambrose for a speedy recovery, but this does mess with WrestleMania. He was supposed to turn on Seth Rollins and lead to a match at Mania against Seth Rollins. Obviously, that is probably not going to happen at this point, which means Seth Rollins, and I actually think it's a good thing because now Seth Rollins is freed up to do something of more importance at WrestleMania. It's not a knock on Dean Ambrose, but I feel like his momentum has slowed ever since the James Ellsworth involvement with AJ Styles last year, and I haven't seen him do anything of importance since. I would really like to see him build himself up again and then do the whole Ambrose versus Rollins thing. I think it would mean more. In the meantime, Seth Rollins is a legitimate threat to anybody walking around with the Universal or WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Can you imagine if Seth Rollins wins the Royal Rumble, which would shock everybody, and then shows up at WrestleMania to challenge AJ Styles for the WWE Championship? AJ Styles, Seth Rollins tearing the house down at WrestleMania. I would pay a lot of money to see that. Actually, I don't have to. I can get it for $9.99 a month on the network. But you know what I'm saying. Great match. The Miz, the last topic of the night. The Miz has been voted Wrestler of the Year by Rolling Stone magazine. And you know, I had people give me comments earlier in the week. They thought, oh, this is ridiculous. No, it's not. The Miz, he is fantastic. He's phenomenal. He deserves this accolade. He carried his brand for the better part of the year. I'm very thrilled that The Miz did what he did. And congratulations to him for being so over that he's been given this accolade. So very cool. Rolling Stone, you got one right. My throat is driving me crazy tonight. By the way, if you haven't noticed, the Chris Jericho Rockin' Wrestling Rager at Sea is posted on FroWrestling.com. Go there, click the link on our page, and it will take you directly in for booking options so you can join the cruise. There are hotel rooms for $749. Now, of course, you got to get the airfare to get down there, where you take a long car ride. But at the end of the day, $750 for a 5-day cruise through the Caribbean with all-inclusive accommodations. You get your hotel room, all your food, your non-carbonated or alcoholic beverages. all those rock concerts, as well as multiple Fozzy appearances, and you get the Sea of Honor tournament from Ring of Honor. What a deal. If you haven't yet, October 27th to 31st, 2018, the Chris Jericho Rock and Wrestling Rager will be going on from Miami to Nassau in the Bahamas. Should be a great time. By all means, if you have not already booked your stay, do that sooner than later. And just as a caveat here, it's holiday season. If you want something extra special to wear around town, don't forget to go to the Fro Shop and order a t-shirt, hat, other memorabilia now. Support the Fro Wrestling Podcast. My personal favorite is the Dropkick the Competition t-shirt. It's in all green. I would recommend that one. It's just my preference. I need to get myself one of those. I have the one that is the logo, but I need to get that one. That's a cool shirt. But definitely check those out. Make a move, grab one, support the Fro Wrestling Podcast. As I said earlier, if you want to become a member of the Fro Wrestling Podcast family, go to patreon.com/Fro Wrestling Podcast. We would love to have you as a member of the family, like our buddies, Harold in St. Louis and John in Hatfield. By all means, check that out. That's pretty much it for this episode. That is pretty much it for 2017. I will be off this week as a teacher. I gotta get away and enjoy some of the break. However, we will be back in the new year with the announcement of all the winners of your voting for Wrestler of the Year, Female Wrestler of the Year, Tag Team of the Year, Match of the Year, Promotion of the Year, Show of the Year. All the topics are in the vote. Go to frowrestling.com right now and click the links to vote on those end of year awards right now. And while you're there, don't forget the final match in the greatest female wrestler of all time tournament is there for you. Sasha Banks taking on Alundra Blaze. You cast your votes. I can't wait to see who you pick. It should be a fantastic champion no matter what happens. I'm going to have to fight the urge to look and see who wins early, because, man, it is going to be awesome. The voting will close at midnight on December 31st. Make sure you get your votes in for both of those polls sooner rather than later. Special thanks as always go out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com. They produce all the music and sound effects we use in our shows. As always, we always want to send out a thanks to Beazle Games. This podcast is sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this new game from Beazle Games by going to frowrestling.com and clicking the icon in the middle of the screen to pick up your copy today. And to alleyrepair.com. Contact Alley Repair today for servicing of all your classic skee-ball, pinball, and arcade game needs. If you're looking for your next career move and you're considering college, university life, or you just need a little more training for that next career opportunity, don't wait. Go to our website, frolifeplanning.com. That is what we do. Don't forget, Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro, and I want to thank you for an incredible year and for spending all these moments with us. If you are looking for more wrestling news and rumors, don't forget to go to www.sportsjunkies101.com for our latest articles on world of professional wrestling, or go to In Fro's Corner on frowrestling.com. Take care, everybody. Have a happy and healthy holiday season, and I'll see you in the new year. Take care. Have a good night.